Hey everybody, so I've wanted to do a video like this for years. I've also had a number of requests over the years for me to put together a video like this, so I figured now is the time. This video is going to be all about what is the ideal age gap between children. So I have 3 children and the first 2 are only 18 months apart, and then between my second and third there is 3.5 years. Both experiences were definitely completely different. However, they both kind of had their pros and cons. It wasn't like one totally won out over the other. They definitely have their pros and cons, at least at this point. My youngest is almost a year old, so things could change as she gets older, but this is just going to be where we're at this point. So I was putting together my thoughts and I was kind of researching, browsing through the internet. I came across this great blog post. I'm actually going to credit it down below because I am going to kind of pick and choose directly from here because I feel like this lady has come up with everything possible. So if you want to see everything, I'll leave it down below, but these are just things that I've personally experienced between the age gap. Alright, so let's start with pros. I'll do pros for the shorter age gap, the kind of 1 to 2 year, and then pros for the larger age gap, and then I'll go ahead and do cons. So the first one says you have a lower risk of preeclampsia than mothers who space their pregnancies. Now, I wasn't even aware about that, but it's actually true for myself because I did start to get preeclampsia. I was like in the early stages with my first daughter, and with my second daughter, 18 months later, I had no issues at all. So that's a bonus. It says it consolidates the exhausting years that you are in baby mode, and that's absolutely true. When you're already dealing with getting up at night and diaper changes and feeding babies and nap schedules and everything like that, adding one more, as long as you can get them on kind of the same schedule, then it's just adding another to like the well-oiled machine, I guess. It just kind of, everything flows. It's not like a big shock to the system when you first have a baby. Adding in a second one that's on a similar schedule, it does kind of flow. Next, it says your children will go through the same stages in fairly close succession, which will make it financially easier to hand down clothing, toys, equipment, rather than storage for years. And that is totally true, especially with Kayla and Riley. I never felt like I had to have 2 different toy areas, or just I wasn't always buying different toys that were appropriate for each age. Same with clothing. After Kayla wore it, it pretty much went directly to Riley 6 months later, so I wasn't storing bins upon bins for years. So I think that is a huge pro. Alright, so I've skipped a few of hers. Again, I'll leave it down below if you want to see what she had to say, but I'm just doing the ones that are relevant to me. It says your children may have the same friends, watch the same TV, and play the same games, all of which mean less work for you. And it's true, like not only the toys, but yes, TV shows for the most part, they totally agree. What else? Friends. Yeah, if one of them has a play date, all 3 of them play together. And that being said, I'm sure this will be listed farther down, but they are like best friends. At times they can be complete enemies too, which is probably a con, but given they're so close in age developmentally, they can play just like a classmate together. So they're never bored, they always have each other. You can organize family outings without having to wait years until the youngest child is ready to participate. I guess that's true, although we're going to Disneyland with our 1-year-old and we're not waiting, we're just doing it. We might take that back, but we're doing it anyways. You can get rid of all the baby clutter quicker. Yes, that is a very rewarding feeling when you start getting rid of all the things that a newborn needs and all the things that a baby needs, and then toddlers and diapers, and it kind of just all goes out the door at once. It is a very satisfying feeling. They play well together. I would argue that sometimes not so much. Siblings who know they need each other to continue their games are motivated to sort out their disagreements, and that's true. Like, they'll get mad at each other and scream at each other, but ultimately they want to fix it because that's their buddy. They want somebody to play with. Interesting. Studies have shown that girls benefit intellectually from closer spaced sibling age gaps. However, the reverse is true for boys. I have never heard that. I'm not personally saying that. That's just what this website says. It says having children in quick succession can pacify fertility fears. So I guess if you're already a higher maternal age and you're worried about getting all your children in before you can no longer have children, then I guess that would be a pro to having them close in age. You'll remember how to care for a newborn while still having the confidence that comes with being a more experienced mom. And that's totally true. When I had Riley, the memories of having Kayla and the labor and how to deal with a newborn, they were still pretty fresh, but I felt like since Kayla was 18 months old, I knew what to expect. So it was very kind of calming in that aspect, knowing that if Riley was colicky, which thank goodness she wasn't like Kayla, but if she went through hard times, I knew that it would come to an end. And lastly, it says firstborns often take to their newly acquired status as the older child by showing new self-reliance. So dressing, feeding themselves, giving up all like baby related things, and that's very true. Kayla is very much the big sister. She wants to do everything first and kind of move through milestones, and she's very proud of that. So yeah, that's definitely a pro. All right, so since we just talked about pros of the shorter age gap, I'm gonna move right on to cons since I just talked about it, and then I'll do the larger age gap. All right, so cons. Falling pregnant so soon after your last pregnancy increases the risk that you'll be deficient in important nutrients. That's definitely something that I've heard, such as being iron deficient. Ooh, you have an increased risk of placental abruption. I wasn't aware of that. Thankfully, I didn't deal with that. Wow, these are all big cons. Compared to women who wait 2 years to conceive, you are 3 to 4 times more likely to experience labor delivery complications. There's a lot of really scary ones in here. I'm not going to say them all because not everybody deals with these. I personally didn't, so they're just kind of statistical information about having your kids closer in age. It says you're more likely to develop the baby blues, which I'm actually going to disagree with because I had baby blues with my first and not my second. All right, here's a good con. Looking after a baby while you're pregnant can be very tiring. Absolutely, especially if you have morning sickness. Oh my goodness, I had 3 months of it when I was pregnant with Riley. Well, really with all 3 of them, but trying to take care of Kayla at that time when she was 9 months old was definitely a con. You may feel that you haven't had enough time alone with your firstborn before your next arrives. I would agree with that. And I kind of struggled with that all along because once Riley arrived, I mean, yeah, we had 18 months, but from that point forward, it was really kind of shared time, so I do miss out on that. But I mean, there's pros and cons to everything. The early years may pass in a blur. It's an all-consuming experience of sleepless nights, breastfeeding, diapers, food, and laundry. Yes, absolutely. It was a crazy time in my life, probably for the first 2 years after we had Riley and we had 2 close in age. Looking back, like luckily I have day in the life videos on this channel to look back. I have memories, but the days were long. Like that saying, the days were long but the years were short, or the months were short, is absolutely true. Common interests lead to competition, and one of the children can become insecure if he constantly does less than his older sibling. Yes, there's a lot of competition. Luckily Riley's pretty good about that. Like, she knows her strengths and weaknesses, but if the younger sibling really took it to heart when they didn't perform as well as their older sibling, then I could see that becoming an issue. In the future, when your children start college, it's going to cost a lot right off the bat. Yep, absolutely. Luckily we have college funds started for them. You're likely to need extra equipment. Yeah, absolutely. If both your kids are in the same car seat, you'll need the double stroller instead of the single stroller. If they both, like, we have them really close and they both still use, I don't know what they use, like a baby swing or a activity center of some sort. Yeah, you could definitely have duplicates of things. You have double the pressure of an irritable newborn and toddler tantrums. Yep. We've had some interesting car rides and some interesting shopping, like grocery shopping experiences with a newborn who's crying and a toddler who's tantruming. That is a thing. And lastly, you have to pack more stuff. So if they're both still in diapers, both still need sippy cups, whatever it might be, your diaper bag's a little bit extra full. I had a giant diaper bag when I had 2 under 2. Alright, so let's now move on to the pros and cons of the larger age gap. So I'm going with 4 years plus on here, although Riley was 3.5. I think this one definitely fits the best. Pros: this is deemed the best spacing if you have a career. So I guess if you want to go back and work a while before you have your next, that's the best. It says this gap is good for your eldest child's self-esteem. They are more secure and more independent as they have had your attention for years. Not all of these are going to directly apply because I have 3, but they're good to know nonetheless. It says if you birth in a hospital and you have a hospital stay, your oldest child will be more likely to cope without you. They are more likely to be more gentle with the new arrival. We dealt with some interesting things when I had 2 under 2. Kayla had no idea of what Riley was and the fact that she was baby and delicate, and many scary situations, but once we had Cassidy, both my older girls knew they had to be very, very careful around one, so I think that's a huge one. You have plenty of time with your baby while your oldest is at school, and that's absolutely true. I mean, Riley's only in preschool, but Kayla's in kindergarten, so I feel like the pressure is off with Cassidy. I have a lot of time just one-on-one with her. I mean, Riley is still home like half days and 2 of the days of the week, but there's just more time to bond with Cassidy one-on-one. It says by the age of 5, children can usually get their own snack and entertain themselves and help you out. They gain that skill, so that's absolutely true, especially with Kayla. She can help me with diaper changes, she can take care of herself, whatever she needs to do. She's even started showering herself. So I mean, the bigger the age gap, really, the easier it is to care for the newborn. You have the confidence that comes with having been a parent for years, and it's likely that you'll be more relaxed this time and not worry about the little things. Yep, I think that's true with the more kids you have too, regardless of the age gap. Some parents report enjoying their children more because they are able to concentrate on each child. I don't like saying enjoying more, but we definitely do appreciate the moments more with Cassidy because we know how quick they go by, and we don't have two that we're dealing with that are so young. We do get to really enjoy the time with her, so I would say that's true. And lastly, you extend your parenting years, delaying the quiet of the empty nest. That's a pro or con depending on how you feel. If you're anxious to get your kids out and have your house back, then that's a con. If you are, you know, dreading the days of an empty nest, then that's definitely a pro. And it's not that I'm dreading it, I want to keep my kids around in my house as long as I can, so that's definitely a pro for me. Alright, moving on to cons. Waiting for years might not be an option for those that are higher up in maternal age. That's obviously a con. Interesting, you have a greater risk of premature rupture of membranes. You'll be stretching out the exhausting early years, particularly if you plan to have a third child. Yep. I often say to my husband, do you know how easy our life would be right now? Because Kayla is 6.5 and Riley's almost 5. If we didn't have Cassidy, obviously we'd take Cassidy over the easiness of having 2, but yeah, that's true. You may feel a bit rusty and out of practice those first few times doing diaper and feeding sessions, and honestly I was kind of worried about that, but I didn't experience that myself. Baby care advice is always changing. For example, weaning recommendations and vaccination schedules change every few years. I definitely experienced this, especially with recommendations for babies' first foods and when they should have their first foods. I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You're pretty much telling me exactly what you told me not to do 4 years ago. Really? So yeah, that's a thing. Your children are less likely to play well together. One is creating a Lego castle while the other is trying to eat it. Yes! Nail on the head. And you're constantly worried about your baby getting some small object in their mouth that they shouldn't. Which makes me cringe. So yes, that is definitely a con, because you either have to have 2 separate playrooms or you have to track your baby at all times. When your sociable older children go to parties and concerts, you'll struggle with a toddler in tow. We're not quite there yet, but I'm sure as my girls get older and Cassidy gets older, we'll run into that situation. Oh, the last one is sad, and I like to hope that it's not true. At this point, it's hard to tell. They love Cassidy and she's only a year old. But I like to think it's not true. It says your children's bond may be weaker. Having one child followed by a long gap before another child can be like having 2 singletons. They may grow up having little in common. Oh, that comes from Baby Center, apparently. And I like to think that that's not true. I'm not experiencing that yet. I'll keep you guys updated, but that's just a con that they listed. So yeah, I hope this video wasn't too long. I thought this article for the most part was very informative. If you were ever wondering like what's the ideal age gap, I think the gist of it is that there is no ideal age gap. It's whatever works for your family. And you know what, for the most part, not for the most part, for some people you can't even choose your age gap. Like we tried for Cassidy, our third, for a year, so we weren't intentionally trying for a larger age gap. That's just kind of what happened. Yeah, I guess no, there's pros and cons to everything. If you do want to try for a certain age gap, maybe you'll find something with more pros than a different age gap that works for you and your family, but I thought this would be helpful. Please let me know if you have any questions. Please also give this video a thumbs up if you liked it and subscribe if you're new, and thank you so much for watching. Bye!